Welcome to the Spiritual Hour with myself, Grey Wolf Psychic Medium, and today we're talking about spirit communication. So we're on episode 4 today. So those of you that are on a spiritual journey right now, maybe you're someone that's starting to become a psychic, starting to become a medium, or is just curious to understand the way that spirit works and communicates with us. So I'm going to share some of my experiences, how spirit communicate with me. Now, I'm clairvoyant psychic medium. So what that means is I get pictures or images inside my mind, and that is how spirit work with me. Now, this is often called the third eye or the pineal gland. Okay, it's often referred to as that. So it's like I'll get a picture or a video running through my mind, and that is how spirit communicate with me, or one of the ways that they communicate with me. I'll get a series of pictures or images. Sometimes they're still, sometimes they're moving. And I have to quickly interpret these pictures or images, what spirit's showing me, to pass on to you guys. Now, for myself, I always talk about clairvoyance being the universal language. Pictures, images are the universal language. So when I'm communicating with spirit, or when they're communicating with me, it doesn't matter what language they speak, what country they was from. It makes no difference because those images are universal and I understand them. So when I'm connecting to someone, the first thing I'll start to see, I'll start to get a picture in my mind. I may have a spirit coming forward, and as they start to come forward, I'd get a picture of what they may look like. So I'd kind of get a height, maybe an age. Sometimes I may see their hair or their hair colour. Sometimes I'll get shown parts of their body to understand what was their physical ailments, for example. So I may see them come forward. I may see them holding a walking stick, a walking frame. I may see a wheelchair. Sometimes I may see things like swollen feet, swollen ankles. I may see them holding their back and holding their hip. Now, if you are someone that is clairvoyant and you're not always sure how to understand it, this will start to help you to understand what spirit trying to say to you. So for me, those pictures and images tell me so much. They come forward, they've got the walking stick, I know they need an aid. Sometimes they've got a walking frame. Again, I understand that they needed an aid, so I know there was a mobility problem. I might see things like issues with the feet and the ankles being swollen with water retention. Again, that's going to tell me something else medically as well. So whether it be arthritis or diabetes or maybe some heart issues. But this will also tell me there's an issue physically, and again, what that may be. Now, sometimes they may hold the back, they may hold the hips, again, to help me understand what they're trying to say. I also say to spirit, I want you to highlight the body parts for me where there may be a physical ailment. So for me, my favourite colour being blue, I say to them, highlight the body colours. So if there's a heart issue, highlight it. If there's an issue within the brain, highlight it. And help me to understand what physical ailments that you want me to mention and pass on to your sitter, so the person that I'm reading for. Sometimes I might get issues like blur in the eye. I might see a diabetic needle, again helping me to understand it's a diabetic. Sometimes I might see coughing to help me to understand that there would have been a lung or respiratory issue that connects there. And sometimes I can understand it as a pneumonia, a COPD, or another lung related issue. So each picture or image tells me so many things, but without any words. Now, that's clairvoyance, and I'll come back to that shortly. I also want to talk about clairaudience. So again, the psychic gift of hearing. So for some of you guys, you might start getting things like high-pitched noise in your ears, like a frequency sound, a high-pitched noise. And again, making sure that there is no medical issues with yourself like tinnitus or high cortisol or anything like that that may cause that high-pitched noise in your ear. Let's just say that you don't have any of those problems. That sound is also the sound of energy. Okay, so when there may be a spirit or a spirit guide just coming in, that sound helps you to understand that you may also be clairaudient, which is the ability to hear. Okay, so the way this works is different for some mediums. For myself, I hear it inside my head. And what I mean by that, inside my head, I might get a single word. Okay, I might get a name. I might get a link for a mother link. I might get, for instance, a place that they give me. So they could give me several different singular words that will just come into my head. So I don't actually hear it in my ears. Just a word that comes into my head. Sometimes it can sound like my own voice, and sometimes it can sound like another voice inside my head. However, some mediums, they hear it how you're hearing me right now, and they can hear it with an accent. But I know a lot of mediums hear it internally, so inside their head, rather than externally. Okay, so how you're hearing me. So again, when you start putting the two together, clairvoyance, so you start seeing some pictures, and then you get a word that comes into your head. That word will also add to the images and help you understand what spirit are trying to say, what they're trying to pass on. Now, there could be tons of words. You might get the accent, you might get the name. What people have to understand as mediums, not all of us have the same gifts. Some of us see, some of us hear, some of us feel, some of us know, some of us taste, and some of us smell. Now, let's get on to feeling. Okay, so this one is known as clairsentience, the ability to feel. Now, with this particular one, we can start to get sensations on our body. So, for example, if a spirit's approaching where they may have passed with, let's say, heart conditions, we can get this funny feeling in our chest as a medium. That can be their way of saying to you that I passed with heart issues or heart troubles. Okay? Then, you may also, for instance, get a pain in your head. That may relate to a stroke or a brain tumour or something else that connects with the head. So it could have been an impact of some sort. But again, they're telling you that there was some issue that relates to the head. But you've got to put the visions together, the words together, the feelings together. And you've got to understand what they're trying to say. Excuse me. Now, so you start to get these feelings, and spirit are trying to let you know what they're trying to say. So again, they could be saying, this is how I passed. You could start coughing like I am now, which will help you to understand that's a lung-related issue. Could be a COPD, could be a pneumonia, could be a virus of some sort. But it will help you to understand that it's most likely a lung-related issue. So these feelings on your body, they're trying to tell you something. You might start getting tingling sensations in your feet, your hands, your legs, anywhere on your body. So when you're connecting to spirit, these feelings that you're getting, these will help you to understand what spirit are trying to say to you. So bear in mind, that's just some of the ailments that spirit would have suffered with, and how they pass that information on to us as well. Feeling goes into many more levels. We could feel sick. We get like a sickness feeling that starts to come through. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes that sickness feeling can relate to, for instance, a cancer situation. And that can help us to understand when we've got this feeling here. Sometimes, again, there may be other feelings that you start to feel on your body where you feel your face go a certain way and you feel like your arm up down one side's going a little bit funny. And again, they may be trying to indicate there's a stroke. Other times, they may give you this feeling in your chest. And what I mean by that, it's like an overwhelming feeling that makes us feel very emotional, and sometimes we can get very, very tearful. And this can be their way of sending us love. Okay, so it's a feeling that we hold here, and we feel the love from them because they're sending us love through our clairsentience. So as you can understand, through these senses, we're starting to get communication. We're starting to see, we're starting to hear, and we're starting to feel what they're trying to say to us. Some of you may also get things like a smell that relates to a certain loved one. For example, there may have been somebody out there that smoked cigarettes or cigars or even smoked something else. And that smell could make you think instantly of this particular person in spirit, bearing in mind there's nobody around you that may be smoking at that particular time. Nobody. And all of a sudden you get this smell. This is again a little subtle way that spirit come through and let you know that they're around you. It could be their perfume. It could be their aftershave. It could be, for instance, like a laundry smell, a mechanic smell. But these are little signs and messages letting you know that your loved one is around you too. So they're trying to communicate in some way by just giving that scent off and letting you know that they're around you. For some of you, now I get this in readings and it's not always comfortable, but for some of you also, you might get this taste, okay? So I can be in the middle of a reading and all of a sudden, one that always gets me is, for instance, a tuna, a fish, anything like that, because I just don't like fish at all. And so I can be in the middle of a reading, get this taste in my mouth and know straight away that's what they're trying to convey. That's what they're trying to pass on to let me know. And I'll be like mortified that I've got this taste in my mouth. But it's a message that they want to pass through. So again, it's one of the other senses that they're trying to make me aware as a message to pass on for someone. So as you can see, through the senses, there is several different ways that spirit can start to bring messages to you. Now, some of you may think to yourself, but how do I do this? How do I start to connect? Let me explain to you how you're going to do this. So first, what I recommend to everybody, because I do teaching classes, I do have students that I teach on Zoom. So anyone that's learning, I always recommend firstly that they do some form of prayer to protect themselves. So your prayer is not just about protection, but it's about intention as well. So when you start, some people would use specific prayers depending on what their beliefs are, religious beliefs, etc., etc. So when I used to go to the spiritual church, they often used to do the Lord's Prayer. However, as I've grown as a medium and started to understand more and more about the spiritual journey and understanding that your prayer is also about intention and telling spirit what it is that you want. Okay, so for me, I would say something like, Dear Divine Spirit, I ask now to undraw the curtains between the two worlds as I ask you to allow me to be a conduit for spiritual messages today. As I ask for messages of love, guidance, healing and memories, and anything else that spirit would like to say. I would also ask for a shield of white light protection to protect me from all negative energies, entities, or any ill intentions of any kind. As I ask also for my guides, my spirit family, my spirit animals, the angels, the archangels, and the divine to step forward and to walk with me and work with me in love and light. Amen. That would be my prayer that I would do. So very, very simple, but asking specifically for your loved ones to step forward, okay? And also asking in there for protection at the same time. Now, once you've done that, this is the time for the next stage. Now, the next stage, I would highly recommend a meditation. Okay, now there is one on my YouTube channel. So if you are watching this on Spotify or any other platform other than my YouTube, you can go over to my YouTube and I've got a guided meditation on there that will help you to connect to your loved ones in spirit. Okay. So at this point, you've done your prayers. Then I would recommend using some earphones or some headphones. Me personally, when I meditate, I prefer to lay down. I feel like I can breathe better. So when I'm breathing, I want to be breathing in. But when I take in that deep breath, like pulling from behind the belly button. So I want to inhale for about 4, hold for about 4, and then exhale for about 4 seconds, give or take. Again, everyone's different. So you get into your comfortable position, lay down, earphones, headphones, whichever. Make sure that nobody can disturb you. So if there's any family, any animals, anything like that, just make sure you've got time and a space to do this where no one's going to disturb you at all. This is where the fun begins. So you'd go through my meditation. I would ask you to walk along this bridge. So there's a specific bridge that would go across. When you get across the bridge, I would also ask you to take in a few deep breaths and to expand your aura. So imagine taking in deep breaths and imagine your aura around you and imagine expanding and expanding and expanding. Okay. Each deep breath, expand it every time. So above you, around you, and underneath you. Okay. So I'd highly recommend doing this. Again, I'll guide you every step of the way through the meditation. A little bit further on in the journey, when you cross the bridge, I'll also ask you to blend with spirit. Okay, for some of you that don't know what that means. So as the spirit's there and you're standing there, so you've come across my bridge, I'd ask you then to blend with them. So if you imagine that you're standing just there, they're standing just there, and you always take a side step to step into their body, okay? So you've sidestepped, you've stepped into their body, you see what they see, hear what they hear, feel what they feel. So you've just took a side step and you've blended with their energy. You've took that step, you've blended into their body. Now at this point, you may start to feel things on your body. So you may start to feel aches, pains, sensations on your body. That will help you to understand again what physical ailments they may have struggled with or suffered with. As you've blended, you can just sidestep again after, but this will help you to get a stronger connection to spirit, okay? A much stronger connection. Then it's time to sit down and talk to spirit. So in this particular meditation that I do, I'd guide you through the process, and maybe you'd embrace them, you may hug them, you may ask them questions, they may answer questions. Now, depending on what your strong senses are to how you'll get your replies. If you only see, you may not hear. So you have to interpret the pictures of what they're saying to you. Some of you will go across this bridge and say, Carl, I didn't feel anything, but I felt very emotional, which means one thing. You may not be clairvoyant right now, but you're clairsentient. You felt that love, you felt that connection. So it doesn't mean that you didn't connect. It just means that you wasn't able to see them, but you could sense them, okay? Some of you may say, I could hear them, but I couldn't see them. So remember that when I say this, not everybody has the same psychic gifts. Some have some, and some have others, okay? And some are greedy, we have lots, okay? Some of us. Now, when you take the time to connect with your loved one, whether it's getting just to see them again, just to be in their energy again, to tell them you love them, for them to pass a message on to you, whatever that may be, in that particular moment, that's your moment. That's your moment that you can take the time to enjoy that. I think the meditation I did on YouTube is around 25 minutes. Now, I am looking to do more meditations on my YouTube channel. So for those of you that are looking for more meditations, you're going to have to head to my YouTube channel to find those, okay? At the moment, we've got a guided meditation to meet your loved ones in spirit, and I'm going to follow that as well with healing meditations and things like that. Help you to learn how to heal yourself, okay? The mind is a very, very powerful tool. We don't realize how powerful we really are until we connect with our inner powers, our inner gifts, to raise our consciousness, to raise our vibration, and to understand what we really have within inside us that we need to unlock. So when you start this journey, it's so important to understand that each step is not to be rushed. It's called a spiritual journey. It's never been called a spiritual race. It's a journey. Take each step and enjoy each step. Understand the lesson of each step, whatever that lesson is. Sometimes as mediums we can get a bit carried away, we can get a bit excited. We ask Spirit for more and more and more, and Spirit will be honest with you and they'll say, you're not ready. You're not ready. And I remember saying to them, Spirit, I want to hear more. They said, Kong, you're not ready. And I remember at this particular point that I had, as I was going through my awakening, I was in one of the shopping centres in my city. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen the film Bruce Almighty, when he starts to hear all these voices. And he could hear all these voices, and it felt very overwhelming for him. I had one episode like that, and Spirit reminded me that if I was to hear that I could ask him for, they said it would be too much for you. It'd be far too much. Just stick with what you've got and understand that everything is there for a reason. Every part of your journey is there for a reason. I've got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I completely accept that. Now, getting back to where we was with Spirit, you've communicated with Spirit, you've met them across the bridge. Now, afterwards, you come back across the bridge, guided by myself, taking each step along the bridge, coming back. Usually on the last step, I'll say to you, imagine yourself at the end of the bridge, and on your final step, step back into your own body. And at that point, open your eyes when you're ready. When you're finished communicating with Spirit, it's also important to do some form of closing prayer, okay? To make sure that you say to Spirit, I'm finished right now. Thank you very much. Thank you for the communication. But right now, I also need to rest and to recover. So mine would sound something like this. Dear Divine Spirit, I ask now to draw the curtains close between the two worlds, as I thank Spirit for their communication today, for allowing me to bring in these much needed messages. But I ask now for Spirit to stand back, allow me the time and space to replenish my energies, and I will let Spirit know when I'm ready to work again in love and light for the greater good. Amen. Now I've added my opening and closing prayers in this episode today for those of you that had no idea where to find an opening prayer, where to find a closing prayer, and to understand there is no set prayer. You can change that as much as you want, but it's all about your intention and also asking for your protection. So that's really, really important to understand. There is no one prayer that one medium does. They find ones that are good for them, that work for them, and they may go with that. Some will also work on the spot. So it's important to understand when you're starting, you may start looking for all this information everywhere, but there is no set one. If that works for you, then go with it. But it's something that I want you all to understand. It's part of the journey as you learn and as you grow. Now, through spirit communication, they can also come in other ways too. You don't always have to meditate to get a connection, but for those on the journey beginning, it's a good way to get your connection or to enhance your connection to spirit. Now, for me, sometimes I may be sitting here, all of a sudden I'll see something out the corner of my eye, I'll see an energy start to come towards me, and then I'll start to get an image in my mind. I can also know when spirit's close because I might hear it here, that high pitch frequency, but I also might get the what I call chicken skin. So when you get goose pimples on your skin and that change of temperature when a spirit's come in, makes the kind of hair on the back of your neck stand up. Not that I've got any, but if you get what I'm saying. So that change in temperature is another way of knowing that spirit's around you in some way. Those of you listening to this right now, you could be thinking of a mother, a father, a grandma, a grandfather, or anybody else in your family that you may have lost right now. And if you stop just for a moment, just for a second, and just visualize them in your mind as you close your eyes and just visualize them, and in your mind right now, say their name and say to them, I love you. If you're here, show me a sign. And as you start to say this, you might start to feel an energy around you. It may be the change in temperature. You may get a feeling in your chest. You may get a feeling in your stomach as they start to come forward and to give you this sign. Some of you may feel emotional when you're doing this too. So again, open your eyes. And again, if you did feel something, I definitely want you to let me know in the comment section of this podcast. Now, you can do this anytime, whether it's now or you do it later after I've finished on this podcast. For me, I've lost both my mum and my dad. So I lost my dad in November and I lost my mum 2 years before that. So both of them now are on the other side. But when I want to connect with them, that's what I do. I start talking to them. Mum, Dad, show me a sign, send me a message. Then I'll start to visualize them in my mind. And as I start to visualize, it's like I'm sending the energy out to them and saying, reach out to me. Okay, so we've got a connection. I'm sending the energy out to them and they connect with that energy. Now, some of them might not come as close and some of them might be right just there, right next to you, right now. Okay, some of us can sense it. And some of us, our senses are a little bit different and it takes a little bit longer for us to understand what we're feeling and how we're feeling this. Now, through my spiritual awakening, my messages came thick and fast. So I was seeing tons of things over and over and over again. I was seeing tons of things in my mind, but I didn't understand them all at first. Until I went to a local spirit church. And I remember them saying to me, Carl, sit in circle and meditate with us. And when you finished, I want you to stand up and say what you see, which is what I was always taught, say what I see. And that's where it began for me, just saying what I started to see within my meditations. Now, I've added a few more little twists and turns to it because I understand spirit is a two-way communication. It's not just what they want to say, but also what I would like to ask. So when they come forward to me, I may say to them, how did you pass? Then they'll highlight the body part. I may say to them, what other physical ailments did you struggle with? So again, they may show them to me. I may feel it on my body. I may see it. Or they may highlight it on the body. I may also say to them, what is your name or your initials? Sometimes it will come very clearly, and sometimes you can be very close and not quite get the name, but be very close. Because I see more than I hear, the names can be sometimes harder. So I might also say to them, show me somebody that I recognise. So just as an example, I might get shown somebody with the name of Mark that I know, just as an example, and that might help me understand that their name is Mark. Okay, I may also get shown a father for me to understand that he's a father figure. So I might get shown my father to understand it's a father coming through. So it will help you to understand a name potentially for somebody that you might know. So they might show you an Andy, a John, whichever. They might show you somebody that you know for you to understand either that's the name or the relationship that they're trying to relate to you. So that will help you to start to understand this. Then I might ask them, for instance, about their personality. So as a clairvoyant, it's easier for me to see this. So I look for facial expressions, I look for body language, and I also look for the way that their energy feels to me. Sometimes I see them like that and I think, they're quite a strict one, this one. Maybe authoritative, potentially military, but not necessarily, but potentially. So these things help me to understand through their body language what their personality is like. I might get shown this, which means a wind-up merchant, someone that loves banter. I might get shown this, someone that's a bit more serious and a little bit more guarded and defensive. And I might get shown this for someone that maybe be authoritative, so like that military chest sticking out. So some of these postures, hand movements, facial expressions can help me understand parts of their personality, or even words that I might see, facial expressions, eye movements and things like that. So they'll help me to understand parts of their personality. And again, sometimes I might get shown somebody I know that it relates to. So it could be, for instance, a friend, a mum, a dad, a sister, a partner, a mother-in-law. It could be any of those things for me to understand, okay, I understand the personality now. I'm being shown this, so that means that their personality is similar to this. So that helps me to then understand what messages they're trying to pass on in that way. So I'd also ask them about their hobbies and their interests. So, for example, they may like things like football, rugby, cricket, baking, gardening, sewing, fishing. These are a few of the examples that Spirit might give me of some of their hobbies and interests that they enjoy doing. Now, as a medium, I like to try and put some structure together to my messages to understand firstly what they're saying to me and how to pass that on. So by asking these questions about the personality and the hobbies and how they passed, what I see next will then help me to understand what Spirit's saying to me to pass on to my client who's getting the reading from me. I may also ask them if there's also a special memory that they'd like to pass on. So a memory that they may have shared together with yourself or the person that I'm reading for. And again, I might get a vision of a memory of some sort that you've shared together. But the most important part of these messages is asking them for the message at the end. What message or guidance would you like to pass on today for your person? That is the most important part, because it's all nice getting all the other parts of the information. They provide the proof. Okay, so as an evidential medium, they provide the proof of the connection to who you're reading for, whether it be their name, the way they looked, how they passed, their physical ailments, the personality, the hobbies, etc. They provide the proof. So that's the evidence that Spirit's providing to say, this is me, this is mum, or this is dad that's coming through. But the message is just as important, because the person loves to get all that, to provide the proof, to know that it's their mum or dad or somebody else that you're reading for. But it's also important that they get some sort of message. What you have to understand is some people didn't get the chance to say goodbye. They may not have had that time to say goodbye to their loved one. There may have been a quick and sudden passing. And when I see that in a reading, that's what I get. And that tells me it's a quick and sudden passing. When I see the fingers being clicked, that tells me that it was very, very quick. So sometimes there's unspoken words that have never been said. You never got the chance to say goodbye to this particular loved one. And this is the point where they want to pass a message on, whatever that message may be. There may also be situations too where you tried to get to the hospital, the home, the care home, wherever it is that this person may be at the end of their life, and you tried to get to them. But for some reason, you didn't manage to get there on time. And again, some people can feel quite annoyed and sad and upset, and I completely understand that. But what you have to know is when they go over to Spirit, they understand all your reasons why you couldn't be there. All the reasons, whether you tried to get there, you just missed out, you just got to the lift, you just got to the building, whatever it may be. They understand all of your reasons, and they would not want any of you to hold any guilt of any kind for not being there. I'll give you an example. My mum passed over to Spirit 2 years ago, and I wasn't able to be with her. By the time I found out that today was the day, by the time I'd got in my car and rushed over to where she was, I probably would have been driving very, very emotional and probably erratic. So I had to make the decision of, am I going to travel and get there in time, or am I going to travel like a madman, trying to get there in time, being very, very emotional, probably making impulsive mistakes. And so I ended up not going to my mum right at the end. Now, I felt ever so guilty about this, even as a medium. I felt very, very guilty about this. However, my mum came forward and she made it very clear to me, don't hold guilt, don't feel sad, I'm okay, I'm with the rest of the family. And she made that very, very clear to me. And although I still held a little bit inside, bit by bit, gradually, I started to let go just that little bit more, knowing that my mum had crossed over, knowing that she was with the other loved ones, and knowing that she knew that I cared and I loved her and I missed her and I was sad that I wasn't there. She understood that. And for anyone that's watching this podcast right now that may have gone through something similar, that didn't get to be with their loved one for whatever reason, they would not want you to hold guilt. I can promise you that. They would not want you to do that. Sometimes it can be really, really hard to process this guilt and to think they're never going to know. But that's not true, because they do know. Because when you're in the room, holding their hand, kissing their forehead, some of you may be doing prayers for them, even after they've passed, they will know. They will know that. They will know that you was there at the end, or if you wasn't there at the end, they will know. But they wouldn't want you to feel sad or guilty either. Okay, that's something that's real, real clear. Now, In terms of other types of spirit communication, there is other ways that they come in too. So another example would be what we call visitation dreams. So you may have had a dream one time where you've gone to bed and you've dreamt of your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, could be anyone that you've lost. And when you've woke up, you've been like, oh my God, I can't believe I dreamt about mum last night and she told me this and she told me that. And it felt so real. You may have even woke up in tears. This is a visitation dream. So it's not just a dream, it's a visit from spirit. Sometimes they don't say anything, sometimes you just see them. And sometimes all they're saying from that is that I'm okay and I'm watching over you. Other times, they may tell you they love you, they miss you. They may also give you a message about something that's happening or going to happen and to let you know of whatever it is that you need to know at the time. They don't happen very often, I will be honest. They can be happening every once a year, once every few years. They're not something that happens all the time, a visitation dream. However, when you do have one, you don't forget it. You remember it. You remember a lot of it very, very clearly. And sometimes it can be really mind blowing. So, spirit can communicate in many, many ways. Okay, so right now I'm in the conscious mind, but when you go to sleep, you're in the subconscious mind, similar to your meditation, which is why spirit will come through when you're in that sleep mode, so the subconscious mind. The reason that they don't stand at the end of the bed and show themselves to you is because for you, that would be really, really scary. It would scare the life out of you. So that is why they don't do that. It's more acceptable for us to say, I dreamed about Nan, I dreamed about Grandad. It's more acceptable. And so we can accept that and go, okay, I had a dream about them. They let me know that it was all right and it didn't frighten me in the same way. So spirit can show you themselves in a few different ways. Other people may do things like spirit writing, spirit art. Some people may even do trance mediumship too. So there's other types of communication and ways that spirit can come through. I'm just giving you my experiences of not just my communication with spirit, but how I communicate and how I structure a message by asking a question inside my head. My mouth never ever moves. It's always inside my head. How did you pass? Okay. What was your personality like? Okay. So these things would always be in my mind when I communicate with them, because again, they can communicate with us very, very easy like this. So it starts to give you an idea of understanding how spirit can communicate with you and through you, and some of the signs that you may be receiving. So whether they be a visitation dream, whether it be the goose pimples that you get, is another example. When my dad was really poorly towards the end, so we'd just gone for what's it called? I think it was biopsy. I think he'd just gone for a biopsy on his lung. He'd been diagnosed with lung cancer. So he'd gone for a biopsy. He'd come back and he was in his living room. And then all of a sudden, a picture that had been on the wall for 10 to 12 years, that had never ever been moved, all of a sudden flew off the wall, just out of the blue. My dad then leans down to try and pick up the picture and the glass off the floor. At that moment, my dad falls to the floor. He gets dizzy, falls to the floor, and he breaks his hip. Then my dad's trying to crawl to a phone, which I didn't know at the time. He's trying to crawl to a phone, and it took him 28 hours to crawl from one room to the other to get to his phone and to call an ambulance. When he got to the hospital, he found out that he had fluid on his lungs, he needed blood, he had low bloods, and he'd also broke his hip. Now, I know what my dad's like, very, very stubborn man before he passed. He wouldn't have gone to the hospital. He was out of breath. I knew he was out of breath. He was out of breath, but he would have just thought, I'm okay. And he probably would have just left it and gone to sleep, which potentially could have been dangerous for him. Had he not fallen to the floor and broke his hip, he probably wouldn't have gone to the hospital. And if he hadn't have gone to the hospital, he wouldn't have had to have had his lung drained and the bloods that he had to have at the hospital. I know that my mum's already told me that she helped that picture to fall off the wall. So yes, they can move things, whether it be a keys or a picture, whatever it may be. I know that that particular day, my mum, from spirit, moved that picture to, although it was difficult, my dad had to break his hip to go through it. Had he not done that, he would have not gone to the hospital and he'd been in much more trouble with the fluid on his lungs, much more trouble. Then there was another time, still with my dad, and I was doing a meditation with my son. So my son's got autism, and I was doing a meditation with him, and it was a children's meditation. And in the meditation, it said, in your mind, invite somebody into your tree house that you'd like to see. So I invited my mum. I said, okay, in my head, Mum, I'd like you to come forward. So my mum comes forward and she says to me, tell your dad to be careful in the shower from falling over. I think, okay. She didn't say any more than that. That was all I got from it. I finished the meditation. My son went to bed. Within an hour, I called my dad. And I said, Dad, I've just done a meditation. And Mum came forward and she said to me, to tell you to be careful in the shower from slipping over in it. And my dad went, oh my God. He said, I fell over yesterday in the shower. And he said, I was stuck on the floor for over 30 minutes. Thankfully, this time he had his phone and he was able to call his friend, and his friend helped him off the bathroom floor and picked him up and was able to help him. But that was a bit of validation for my dad on how spirit works with me or through me. And he knows that I wouldn't have known that because he hadn't have told me. Obviously, I rang him. And then that was giving me a little bit of insight to know that my mum was watching over him. So it just gave him a little bit of thought. He knew what I did. Obviously, I'd done readings before. He knew what I did. So he knew what I could do. But being his son, obviously he knows that I know a lot about him, obviously. So with this particular thing, he knew I didn't know. He knew damn well I didn't know. So this was a little bit of validation for him of how the spirit world works. Spirit can work in many, many wonderful ways. And from my experience of working with spirit, not only can they give you information about the person in spirit, but they can also give you information of something that may be coming up too. Now, one of them that really stands out that I've never forgotten, I was reading for a lady in America, and I told her that I could see a tree on the front of a property, and I could see lightning striking this tree. And she said, okay, thank you very much, Carl. Didn't really think anything of it at the time. It was gone. 2-3 months later, the lady messaged me. And she said to me, Carl, do you remember the time that you said to me that lightning was going to strike my tree? I said, yeah. She said, well, there was 2 trees on my front, and I decided to have one of them chopped down. Now, I didn't see 2. I just seen one. So whether one was in front of the other, I don't know. It was just the way I saw it. She said, I had one of the trees chopped down. However, lightning struck the other tree on the front of my property, the one that remained. To this day, that still blows me away. I get tons of things from spirit, tons and tons. But to know exactly where lightning's going to strike, I cannot imagine what the probability would be of that. I can't imagine millions and billions and trillions to one. It must be. To know where it's going to strike blows my mind. That's the kind of validation that they can give. And you never know what they're going to say in a message. You've got no idea. And it can be anything from that to another one that I had for somebody. And I told them that I could see the airbag going off in the car, but there was no accident. I said, it's a faulty airbag and your airbag's going to go off. Again, a month, 2 months, something like that later, they messaged me and says, Carl, you was right. My airbag went off just like that, faulty airbag. And then we've had to take it into the garage. So sometimes you don't know. There's another example where I read for somebody else, and I told her that I could see a blowout on a car, on the tyres. I said, I can see a blowout. And I think within a couple of weeks this one happened, and she got back to me, and she said to me, I cannot believe it, Carl. I had 2 tyres blow out at the same time, and she was on the motorway. Thankfully, she was okay, thankfully. But sometimes you don't know what Spirit's going to tell you. And sometimes that can make someone feel calm. So not just the example of a blowout, because that may make you feel anxious. But for example, there was another lady that I read for, who is probably listening to this podcast. I remember telling her that I could see some chest problems and she may have some struggles with breathing, but she was going to be okay. And I said, I want you to remember these words. Although there's going to be some struggles with this, you're going to be okay. I know that she got taken into hospital. And I know that she messaged me afterwards and she said to me, Carl, I remembered your words that you said to me. And you said to me, although there's going to be some struggles, you're going to be finding it difficult to breathe, you're going to be okay. And she said, I hung on to those words, and those words was what got me through. And I still talk to this lady now. And sometimes there can be messages like that that can be reassuring to let somebody know that although there may be something that's coming up that maybe not necessarily good, they're going to come through it. And I think sometimes that's the importance of a message, knowing that you're going to come through whatever challenge that might be. We never know what the challenge is going to be. Sometimes there could be little challenges and sometimes there can be big challenges. But it amazes me what Spirit can give in readings. And, you know, they can be very small things, like you're going to get a chipped windscreen on your car, or very large things, you know, like lightning striking the tree on your property. But when you read in Spirit, you never know what they're going to say. It can be absolutely anything. So it amazes me the kind of messages that can come through from Spirit for people. And I've had some very difficult messages to see. As a clairvoyant, I see. And some spirits connecting with them, it can be very, very difficult to see either the way that they've passed or even something that they've gone through. And sometimes I will say to Spirit, please don't show me that way. Please don't show me like that, because it can be very difficult or triggering for me to see the way that they may have passed or something that they may be going through that can be very, very triggering. And I've done readings before many, many times where I've had readings similar to that. And one in particular I did, I had to take 2 weeks off after. It affected me that much. It was at the beginning of my journey, mind you. But I had to take 2 weeks off just to kind of realign my energies, recenter myself, and just come back up again. And then I was saying to Spirit, please don't work like that with me. If there's going to be some form of trauma in some way, I'd rather see a box with a T or trauma written on it. I don't have to see the trauma. I just have to know that there's some kind. because different traumas can be very, very difficult to see, even for the medium. And then the other important thing to understand, as anyone that's becoming a psychic or a medium, is to understand the ethics and morals that you're working with. To understand the things that you should say and the things that you shouldn't say. And some of the things, for example, that you wouldn't say. If I'm on a private reading, I can say more detail, and it's just me and the client, and that's absolutely fine. If I'm on a public platform, for instance, Facebook or TikTok, or even a live demonstration in public, with people on the chairs and me on the stage, I'll have to give it in a way that the client understands, but the whole audience doesn't understand. For them to understand the message I'm trying to say to them without being specific to what the trauma may relate to, although they understand, I don't have to open it up. I don't want them to feel any form of embarrassment or anything like that. So it's about working in an ethical way, in a moral way. There's mediums out there that say things to people that would create a ton of anxiety relating to certain health issues. Now, there's some health things I'm going to give, but there's some health things that I can never give. And I can't give them quite simpler because, firstly, I'm not medically trained, which I point out to all of my clients, and you should always seek medical advice, always. But there's some things that if you're wrong on what you're seeing, the amount of anxiety that will create for your sitter is unimaginable. And for an example of that, right just here, I had a lump on my neck. And I had a scan on my back, and I got pulled into the hospital, and they said, "We're sorry, Carl, but we think that you've got sarcoma cancer on your neck." So I'm like, so for about a year, I walked around waiting for this surgery on my neck. Not sure what the results are, but the guy at the hospital, the consultant, told me we think it's sarcoma cancer. So for a whole year, I walked around thinking I had cancer, lost tons of weight. The anxiety was unbelievable. I can't even put it into words. Then I had the surgery, and when I had the surgery, the consultant, which was a different person, said to me, it was just fatty tissue. I don't know why the other consultant told you that. He shouldn't have told you that. So my lesson from that was understanding what it feels like to be told you've got something that could obviously be life-threatening, but the effect that has on someone and the effect it has on their mental health and how that can impact their life and their mental health. So this is why there's a need for forms of ethics and morals, mediums being understanding what can be helpful and what could be less than helpful and create more anxiety than good. If I'm to see something in a reading that I feel like needs looking at, rather than me be specific, for example, I'll say I'm being shown a scan across the chest. Just an example. That will say that there's an issue in this area, but non-specific to what it is. And I'll say, if anything doesn't feel right, just go and get it checked out. Rather than scaring the life out of them and saying, I think that this is going to happen and I think that's going to happen. And it's the same if I see anything relating to any other organs, as example, the lungs. Again, if something doesn't feel right, the cough doesn't go, anything else doesn't look right or feel right, just go and get it checked out. So I'm not going to be specific in the fact that I say I'm going to see lung cancer, for example. But I say if something doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, go and get it checked out. Now, the thing is, sometimes there's no signs, because with my own dad, he went to the hospital for a scan on his neck, and he had a trapped nerve in his neck. That's all he went for. And he got the results from his scan where they managed to pick up from his back that he had lung cancer. So he actually never went for lung cancer or even suspicion of it. He went because of his neck. So sometimes there is no signs. And my dad said to me for 2-3 months, I'm not sure the doctor's even got it right. I'm really not sure he's got it right. I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with me. And then all of a sudden, after 3 months, everything changed. Literally everything changed. And he was struggling with his walking, struggling with his breathing. And, there was a big, big decline. So there's not always the signs that there is something like that. But it's important, if you are a medium listening to this, or someone that's wanting to become a medium, to make sure you work from the right ethics and morals, to make sure that what you're doing, you understand the impact that that has on someone, to understand that particularly when it comes to anything that could be medical or cause some form of anxiety, understand how to deliver the message. I always say to my students, it's not what you channel that makes you a good medium. It's the way that you deliver your message what sets you apart from the rest of the mediums. We can all channel, but giving it in a certain way and understanding how you would be wanting to be spoken to, bearing in mind this is your loved one, and understanding how to deliver that message with compassion, with empathy, with love and understanding how your client may feel, and understanding that you're channeling their loved one. You've got to put all that together. You've got to put all that together to understand this work holds responsibility, personal responsibility, and understanding that when you're working for the divine in some way, you've got to hold that responsibility and understand your ethics and your morals working with the clients and working with the spirit world. It's really important to make sure that you understand that. Now, some of you may connect to spiritual churches and understand the 7 principles of spirit. For those of you that don't know, they're important, understanding ethics and morals and making sure that you're working from the right space and asking yourself, will that create more anxiety, or will I be helpful in some way passing this information on? So they're just things to just bear in mind for anyone that's on this journey right now that wants to become a psychic, wants to become a medium, wants to understand how to deliver those messages. For anybody interested, I do 6-week mediumship courses. I do these via Zoom. They're usually on a Monday evening from 7 till 10 p.m. UK time zone. But those places on the courses go very, very quickly. If you are interested in those, you can inquire to me through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or even through the email, which is the Spiritual Hour Podcast @gmail.com. And you can inquire through there. I also do private one-to-one readings for anyone that's listening and is wondering about private readings. I also do those. I do them by video call. So I like my client to be on the screen. I want it to feel more personal. So again, you can inquire about that too. But I hope all of you have enjoyed this journey today of understanding spirit communication and the way that they communicate with us and through us. So I hope a few of you go onto my YouTube, check out the guided meditation that's on there, and if you want more meditations, let me know in the comments. And if I get enough comments and people kind of asking for specific ones, maybe I'll do some more. So that's something that's coming in the coming weeks and coming months. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today. This is the Spiritual Hour. I'm Grey Wolf Psychic Medium, and I'll see you again next Thursday. Take care, guys.